I've been filming this in so many bits and pieces already that it feels all over the place, but that's for editing me to worry about later. So welcome to a completely new project. I'm working on this at the wrong time of year. So let me tell you about a robe my mother had when I was a child. She had this velvet robe. House coat. She had this velvet robe house coat type thing with a zipper and a hood, and it's very 80s, giving very 80s vibes. But I really enjoyed it. I bought it, of course, because that's what you do as a child. And I recently wanted to have something similar. We're not recreating it by any stretch of the word, but we're making something that gives me the same essence of something cozy and snug, but still pretty, so that when I lounge about at home, I can feel pretty and put together, but comfortable and warm. Which brings us to the part where I'm making this in the completely wrong season, because it is really hot in Denmark right now. But at least it should be done for when the weather actually turns and we get to winter again. I just realized the pattern piece I'm cutting out, I wasn't intending to use in this fabric. Oops! Huh. I could turn it into pockets. That's a good idea. That won't do. Oh, this is a really awkward piece to cut out. On the other hand, I'm actually anticipating using this as the outside layer, so I could just add a seam, because this fabric will be on the underside. No one's going to see a seam. I think we'll do that. I'm trying to line it up so that the top here is more or less on the grain line, so I don't get anything that goes too wonky. I think this should be alright. So I need to cut to and add a bit of seam allowance at the top here. I have cut out all my pieces and we're gonna start assembling. In terms of patterning, I have pattern, I'll insert a picture of it somewhere, it's just a little top with like a crossover body. I didn't want a zipper closure, and I wanted something that went up and like covered me up here. I definitely took inspiration from like the 1950s house coats. I'll put in a picture here of something I liked. So we're kind of going for a mashup of all of these things. But anyway, I had this bodice pattern, which I then took and tried out and hacked a bit. So I get some kind of crossover closure. I'm also not doing a tie crossover because I don't find them very comfortable, to be honest. Still a bit undecided whether or not we're gonna go for hooks and eyes or maybe some discreet buttons or some fun buttons. We'll see. Long sleeves with a cuff. I'm gonna take the sleeves from the patterns I used for the silk shirts, which you probably still haven't seen yet, but I made some silk shirts for my wedding dress ensemble. So I have a nice bishop sleeve from that pattern that I can add on. And then for the skirt, I wanted something big and swooshy, so we're going for some kind of circle skirt-esque thing. So no pattern required for that. I'll just base it off of the measurements of the bodice I put together. And if I missed anything, I'll add it in voiceover. Oh, and then the bodice pattern, it didn't have any type of color. I really like the look of the color from the 1950s housecoat picture. So I wanted to recreate something slightly like that. And I ended up just freehand drafting a color piece that I am going to add on, and hopefully it looks really good. We're working with these two fabrics. This one I'm going to use primarily as the lining and then as some accent pieces on the, let's call it a housecoat robe. And then this is the main fabric that we're using. It's very nice. This is a linen cotton blend, I think. And this is just some really soft cotton. So yeah, first things first, this is my color piece or my color pieces. So I ended up, as you saw, cutting this one as two pieces. So I need to seam those together. And then I'm going to stitch these together and understitch it. This color piece is one of the places where I'm going to let the lining fabric actually be the outside layer. So yeah, let's get to it. I'm gonna start by stitching the outer curve of the color, leaving the inner curve alone for now. So I'm going right sides together. Just roughly pinning it all together. Oh, can you even see that? If I hold it here, I closed the seam instead of keeping it open. Never mind, it'll be fine. This needs to be clipped, turned, ironed, and then understitched, but I'm trying to do some batch sewing here at the machine, so I'll set that aside for now. I'm getting ready to pin the darts in my lining bodice. Sorry if you can hear the birds outside, they're being noisy. It's gotten really warm. It's definitely turned into summer all of a sudden. I always end up putting the needles where I can't really see them. Always. Next, I'm gonna attach my shoulder seams and my side seams, and I haven't pulled out the ironing board yet, but I'll definitely do that. And since this is the lining, I'm not gonna bother zigzagging any of the seams because they'll all be neatly tucked away inside of this sandwich fabric. I am using some sort of a circle skirt pattern. I'll explain more about that later. So to make it easier on myself, I'm going to start from the other end of the fabric. There's a lot of fabric. I already cut out my lining layer, and I can definitely see that this fabric is not quite as wide as the lining fabric, so hopefully the skirt will fit. So for my first panel, I'm going to start in this corner and measure 20 centimeters first for the waistline, and then I want the skirt to be roughly 80 centimeters. I do think, after having already stitched together the lining, that it's maybe a bit too long, so if I end up in trouble, I might take off a couple of centimeters there. Yeah, see how it goes. Also, I'm already tired of crawling around on the floor. Final skirt pattern is to cut essentially a half circle skirt now, instead of the 2/4 I just did, to be the back portion of the skirt. But I'm a bit worried if I have enough width, so I'll have to measure it out. Also, the waist measurement here is slightly shorter. I did some mathing to figure out how I could get skirt panels with a waist size that matched the bodice size that I've come up with. So here's hoping the fabric's wide enough. It just fits. Well, aren't I lucky? There isn't going to be room for seam allowance though, but that's okay. The skirt was a bit too long anyway, so we'll make it work. I'm going to spare you the agony of watching me crawling around and cutting that out, and cut to when I've actually cut it out. End. This is the bodice piece that I sewed in the main fabric. So I'm ironing my darts and I am ironing all my sleeves open. And maybe also giving fabric a bit of an iron. I pre-washed everything before starting this project, but I could not be bothered ironing at all. I bought 5 meters of each of the 2 fabrics, so I figured it would be okay to wing it. Right. Piece number 1. To the side. I also seamed together the skirt pieces, so I'm just gonna open up those seams as well. I haven't actually done this for the lining yet. I just finger pressed the top bit when I attached it to the bodice. Let's be good and do the right thing now that I'm here anyway. Oh, there's gonna be a lot of hemming. I guess essentially this does add up to a full circle skirt. I just did slightly different waist circumferences to get the pattern lines to match up on the skirt and the bodice. So I measured the length of my front bodice pieces and the length of my back, and then I calculated the... So I did it backwards essentially. Normally you know what your waist circumference is and you plop that into a calculator. So then it'll give you whatever you need to draw out for the circle skirt, but here I already knew the finished circumference I wanted at the top, so I just pretended that was a circle circumference and then asked for the corresponding radius. So I knew how to draw out circle skirts. Alright, done. Color piece. This is... I'm getting flashbacks to when I made the straps for my wedding dress. This is a very similar construction. And that seam was probably one of the worst ones to iron. I was going to understitch this, but I wonder if a top stitch would look better actually. So bring out the thread color from the main fabric. Clipping notches though in the seam definitely makes this a lot easier. Oh, that's pretty good. I think I will top stitch. At the machine, I'm a bit low energy, so we'll see how much more we get done today. I'm gonna start out with some top stitching. Not necessarily even,